This is my story about love, and it's called Pillow Talk. Pillow Talk. So please grab somebody that you love, and if you don't have anyone that you love, you always have me. So here we go. New York City in 1950s had more than its fair share of hotels. Everything from luxury hotels on Central Park South to flop houses down on the Bowery. Milton Armitage wasn't interested in either extreme. Milton Armitage had never dealt in extremes of any kind until now. All he was looking for was a decent-looking, clean place in a good neighborhood for the afternoon. Milton himself was very clean and more than decent-looking. Tall, with a good physique and posture from playing football in college, he had a square jaw and a dimpled chin and dark, wavy hair. His well-cut gray flannel suit looked good on him, as did all his clothing, down to and including his boxer shorts. He was the kind of guy that any girl would fall for. Milton Armitage didn't want any girl. He wanted Thalia Menninger. Dreamy, creamy, long-legged, blonde hair and blue-eyed Thalia Menninger. Thalia was Milton's one and only extreme. Now, there may be nothing extreme about a good-looking man and a good-looking girl getting together for an afternoon's pleasure. But in this case, there was. In this case, what made it extreme was Zelda Gilroy. Zelda Gilroy was also known as Mrs. Milton Armitage. Zelda, Milton thought, when he thought of her at all, was not unattractive in her way. But she was not attractive in his way. And she was certainly no Thalia Menninger. Zelda did have drive, and she had installed that drive into Milton. Zelda was level-headed and sensible. Because of Zelda's influence, Milton had stopped coasting on his good looks. Because of Zelda's insistence, Milton had gotten a job at an advertising agency, where his years of depending on his appearance to get what he wanted served him in good stead. Milton succeeded financially, which allowed them to move out of their one-room flat on 28th Street in Manhattan and purchase a big, beautiful house in the suburbs of Westchester. Now Zelda could rule in a kingdom of her own, far from Milton. And Milton could concentrate on Thalia. Not Zelda. Milton met Thalia at work, of course. Where else would a married man meet a beautiful, single woman? But Thalia was not one of those pneumatic, airheaded bimbos in the secretarial pool. Thalia had a corner office and was one of the top executives at the advertising agency. And she didn't get there by her good looks. Thalia Menninger was sharp, smart, and ruthless. Zelda had latched onto him and ignited a desire for money and success, Milton thought as he walked across 57th Street to the small, unobtrusive S. Peter Pryor Hotel. If only he had met Thalia first. Imagine the fires she could have ignited in him. Why, they could have been vice presidents and running the company by this time. The hotel lobby was dull and faded, not shoddy exactly, but far from deluxe. But it was unobtrusive, and that's what he needed. The desk clerk was tall, thin, and wiry. He reminded Milton of somebody. Who was it? Of course, it was that grocer, Herbert T. Gillis, the father of Gillis. Gillis' son was responsible for refusing Zelda and capturing Thalia's heart in high school. Gillis's dopey puppy dog looks and hopelessness had enchanted Thalia, who thought she could create a success out of him. How wrong she was. After a few years, they got a quick Mexican divorce, and Thalia shook it off to find her own success. Milton heard that Gillis had become a beatnik. Name? What was that? Said Milton. Your name. Sign your name in the registry. The clerk said in a tone Milton thought was far above his station. Milton considered it for a moment and signed D. Gillis. He couldn't remember Gillis's dopey first name. Small revenge, but revenge nevertheless. D. Gillis, the desk clerk said. Well, I suppose that's more original than Smith. Here's your key. Room 3RW, up 2 flights and on your right. The desk clerk smirked as Milton headed up the stairs. The room was small and cramped. 2 tiny windows looked out on a dark concrete alleyway. A large bed took up most of the space, its leg propped up on a couple of Gideon Bibles because the floor had sunk with age and tilted towards the door. But the sheets were clean, the room was warm, and once Thalia was there, it would be a paradise of pleasure. Milton heard high heels on the stairway, Thalia's heels. She knocked on the door and turned the knob without waiting for an answer. She was wearing a long trench coat, belted tightly against her thin waist, dark cat-eye sunglasses, and a dark scarf that covered her head. She entered the tiny room, took off her scarf, and laid it over the one table lamp, softening its harsh glare. Her golden hair fell to her shoulders in soft curls as she ripped off her sunglasses, and her light blue eyes found the bed with Milton on it. He was wearing a white tank top that revealed his naturally muscular arms and shoulders, and his signature boxer shorts, white with red hearts. He liked to be undressed by Thalia. She released a squeal of delight at the sight of him. Thalia loosened the belt of her trench coat, which fell slowly from her shoulders. She was completely nude, curtailing Milton's pleasure of undressing her. He didn't seem disappointed. She jumped on the bed without removing her high heels and crawled to Milton on her hands and knees, a hungry smile on her full red lips. Downtown, the arresting officer, Chatsworth Osborne Jr., thin and boyishly handsome despite his weaselly personality, stood as plainclothes Detective Krebs questioned the subject. Krebs had spent years undercover in Greenwich Village and still assumed the clothing, speech pattern, and goatee of its denizens. So you heard the 2 cats in question making it, and you burst in and shot them? Detective Krebs asked. No, that's incorrect. I heard their lovemaking, but I was long past caring, said Mrs. Milton Armitage, nee Ms. Zelda Gilroy. Oh, come now, said Detective Krebs. Officer Osborne smirked. Zelda was handsomely dressed in a silk, pale gray Fifth Avenue designer outfit. It's true, Zelda said. Why should I care about what kind of nonsense Milton gets up to, as long as he pays the bills? So, why did you follow him into the city and, burst into his hotel room? Krebs asked. You tell her, Detective Baby, said Officer Osborne, who had spent his fair share of time on the beat in Greenwich Village himself. I came to the city to get the Sachs charge plate. Milton had forgotten to leave it for me. His secretary told me she had recommended a hotel with day rates for him. That checks out, Detective Baby, said Osborne. I dig, said Krebs. So why did you make with the pea shooter? I heard his chippy coming up the stairs. I'm not one to intrude on a sexual liaison, so I made myself unobtrusive. I wasn't going to waste a trip all the way to New York. So why did you burst open the door and send him to Harpsville? Zelda said, as I was leaning against the door, smoking a cigarette and waiting for an appropriate moment to ask for the charge plate, I heard a baby doll voice say, oh, Milty Wilty, grab my nays and suck them. Then Milton said, oh yes, fairly warely, let me put my pee-pee in your hoo-ha. That's when I burst in and shot them. Like the end.